Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Year 10 Informal Parents Evening. Now, you may have attended one of our other evenings like this with Year 7s or Year 12s, but if not, if you're new as a Year 10 Parents Evening to this, then I hope you do enjoy this new form of webinar, our way of reaching out to you. I know that we're not able to talk to you as individuals. I know that many of you enjoy the fact that we can stay afterwards to answer your questions, but you have given us some of your questions and they've been incorporated into this presentation for this evening. Now, one of the reasons why we think it's important to speak to you as Year 10 parents is because GCSEs are hard, and they're meant to be. The new form of GCSE, well, not new anymore really, about 3 to 4 years old, depending on which subject that your students were studying, that there's a lot more content and they are challenging. The staff have to work very hard to be able to cover the entire content at the depth that we expect our students to work to. They are also going to be learning new skills. A lot of this is about being independent in the way that they work, being able to analyse and criticise as well as summarise much of the work that they're doing now. And they're doing this while they're going through adolescence, probably one of the most emotionally traumatic times of our lives, where suddenly your emotions change and you don't know. And also the girls are trying to work out who they are as an individual while going through GCSEs. So they are hard. And we are here as a community, as a group of people to help your daughters, our students, through this process. And the best way to do that is to work as a team, to have the same message. This is how we are going to get our students through this. And that's why we have an evening like this, so that you can hear the message that we are giving to your daughters, and if possible, you can be alongside us with those messages. Now, 2 years is actually quite a long time in the life of an adolescent. And this is the first time when they've had a real focus on one set of exams at the end of those 2 years. And it's important, just like fell runners, to have the eye on the prize as you climb higher and higher, and as it gets harder and harder, to focus on what the outcome is. Those GCSEs, their passport to the next stage of their lives. Now, I know it's probably going to be hard to encourage them to think about enjoying learning. If this is a slog for them, then it's going to be hard. If they can be focused on the joy of knowing more than they did the day before, of having the knowledge and the skills that will be able to see them through to the careers that they want to be able to go on to, it's really important. Now, we do try to find a way of taking the stress out of the situation. Mr. Cowling's going to be talking about that later. And there are going to be times when your daughters just need a really good listening to. There aren't necessarily going to be solutions, but in many ways, being able to just talk about it is really what we're looking for. Thank you for tuning in for this evening. I am now going to pass over to Mr. Cowling. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tighe. It's lovely to be able to talk to you this evening. The last time that I stood in front of you was at the options evening at the beginning of this calendar year. A lot has obviously happened in our lives, both in school and in a wider sense since that moment. But it has been wonderful to see this very special year group return to us in September. It's been great to see them making an enthusiastic start on their GCSE courses. And everything that we said at that options evening remains true. We know that we have a year group here with the capacity to do exceptionally well in Key Stage 4. In the next few minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the context in which they're working, picking up on some things that Ms. Tighe has said, and just share some things that we think we know as a school about how to be successful at Key Stage 4. So, as Ms. Tighe indicated, GCSEs have seen significant reform over the last few years, and although the details of that vary from subject to subject, The headlines are that the content has become harder and more extensive. There was a real emphasis in the reforms on academic rigour, and in many subjects there's less emphasis on coursework. When you see those as headlines, they can be a little bit alarming. It looks as though this is something that's going to be terribly challenging for the girls. The first message I want to convey this evening is that this doesn't need to be a cause for concern in this school. We have students in this school who love learning, who love intellectual challenge, who want to wrestle with academic problems. We have students who do well in exam, who have the work ethic that means that they can prepare for those terminal exams and do very well. So although this is a new context, although the exams that this year group will be taking are different from perhaps those that their older sisters took or other family members have experienced in the past, they don't need to be alarmed. They have the capacity to do well. Last year we gathered from the Year 12 students some reflections on what had enabled them to do well at Key Stage 4, and I want to share them again this evening because these are genuine students who've been through this process who are able to share with us what enabled them to not just survive but thrive during these 2 years. The first set of comments that you can see on the screen are comments around well-being. You'll be fine. Believe in yourself. Enjoy Year 10 and Year 11. Look after yourself. And those are really important messages. We recognise the truth that sort of underpins those, that a student who is happy, a student who is healthy, is going to be a student that is successful. They're messages that we're trying to communicate all the time in school. I'm sure they are messages that you are communicating to your daughters at home. And I think they're messages that we just need to keep reiterating. Not least because these are hard things to do at the moment, we recognise. It's hard sometimes to believe in the current context that we will be fine, that we can believe in ourselves. It's hard to look after ourselves at a time of pandemic. So I think it is important we keep saying these things to the students. We're also saying very clearly to this year group, you are in a good position in your education at the moment. You have not had an exam course disrupted by lockdown. In almost every subject, you've begun afresh in September, and that means that you're in a very, very strong position. You're starting GCSEs, you're back in school, and we are therefore very hopeful that you're going to be able to make your way through those as previous year groups have done. One of the questions that was asked by parents this evening was, how are we going to ensure that the students catch up? Because we're at the beginning of a talk course, at the moment we are seeing the girls making a very good start on those courses. We are being very alert, we're making sure that we're monitoring, and if we do identify gaps in learning as a result of the spring and summer, we will address those. But the message we want to give to the girls is that they should just feel confident to move forward now because they haven't had the course disrupted. While we're talking about wellbeing, I just want to share with you this tool that we use frequently with the students in school. It's not ours, you may have encountered it in other contexts, but it's the 5 steps to wellbeing. And I just encourage you, if you aren't familiar with this, to be aware of it, because I think it's a very useful way of thinking about what may help your daughters if they are finding things difficult. Connecting with others, being active, physical education continues to matter a great deal at the moment. To take notice of the things that give them joy, obviously to keep learning, but also to find ways in which they can be of service to others. And I think that's a useful toolkit, a useful set of behaviours that we can encourage the girls to maintain because it will help them look after their mental health. 2 further things that the Year 12 students said. They recognise that there is now a lot to learn. And they said that one of the things that had helped them was ensuring that they were addressing this as they went along. The thing that can be very frightening for students is if they suddenly face a big test or an exam and find that they've got to revise large amounts of content and that isn't securely in their memory. There's a lot of science now that suggests that if students are on a very regular basis committing things to memory, retrieving it from their memory, checking whether they've remembered things, that will help them commit that content to long-term memory. It will make things easier as they go along. So some specific advice from the Year 12s. Try to make sure that you make revision notes as you go along. Make use of the regular tests set in school, not to work out whether you're better than the girl sitting next to you, not to work out whether you're on course for a particular grade, but to use that test as an opportunity to commit things to memory, to test whether that can be retrieved, and if not, to reflect on how you're learning. And then to self-test, to make that part of the work that you're doing at home, that students are just on a regular basis looking back over what they've done, making sure that they're secure with it, and maybe testing themselves on it. One final area that the Year 12s spoke about, and I think it's an important area for an evening like this, and that is all of the Year 12s we spoke to about this recognised they needed support through the 2 years. They recognised the importance of their family. They said to the Year 10s, it's important that you talk to your family. You need your mum, you need your dad, you need your brothers and sisters around you to support you. We know that talking to teenage students is not always an easy thing. We know that sometimes questions about what's happened in school today, how are you getting on, are met with deafening silence, but please persist. It is important that we engage with the girls. It is important that we keep open that communication so that they can look at you for support. And then finally, that comment from 1 Year 12, teaching someone else was a massive help, even if it bored my mum out of her mind. I'm sorry if over the next 2 years you're going to discover more about French and history and geography than you perhaps wanted in these 2 years, but it will support your student. I'm going to speak just very quickly about the way in which exams are graded, and then I'm going to hand over to Ms. Harris, who's going to talk about maths. But you will be aware that we've now moved over to numerical grading. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the old letter grades. If we look at the grade C, which used to be regarded as a pass, it was the grade that enabled students to move forward to the next step in their education. You can see that students that were at the lower end of the old grade C are now awarded a grade 4. Students who were operating at the upper end of that are now awarded a grade 5. Both the grade 4 and a grade 5 are regarded as a pass in the new GCSEs. The grade 5 is often referred to as a good pass. If we move up, we can see that the top of grade 5 and grade 6 are for those students who would have been a grade B in the old system. A 7 is an A, and then the old A star straddles the 8 and 9 grades in the new GCSE. And I think that's just worth drawing attention to as well. That grade 9 was designed to be exceptionally challenging. It was designed for those students who were performing at the top end of the A star. And so it's important that students don't expect that to be something that they're going to achieve immediately across their subjects. It's something that they will need to work with their teachers towards if that's the grade that's going to be their target at the end of the 2 years. Ms. Harris is now going to talk a little bit about maths and explain the course that all of your daughters will be following over the next 2 years.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I just wanted to say a few things about GCSE maths, particularly about the fact that we have 2 tiers of entry. So Mr. Cowling just explained about the new grading system, which goes from 1 to 9. In maths, we have 2 tiers of entry. We have a foundation paper and a higher paper. Now, if you can see the chart in front of you, the grades available in the foundation paper are grades 1 to 5, and on higher, grades 4 to 9. It's important to note that the grade 4 and 5 work on both papers is the same, and if you achieve a grade 5 in foundation, then it's the same as a grade 5 in higher. And you might be particularly interested in that because that's something that's important for many sixth forms, including ours, that students achieve a grade 5 in their maths. So that is available on a foundation paper. Now, I just want to share some information with you because you may have members of the family that took the old GCSE. In the old GCSE, we still had the 2 tiers of entry, higher and foundation. But if you look at the data in front of you, you can see that under the old system, only 20% of the cohort with EdXL, which is the exam board that we use for maths and is used by many schools across the country, only 20% of the cohort would have taken foundation level. Now, as the GCSE is now much harder than it used to be with the increased content, it is working at about 50% of the cohort are now taking foundation. So when you hear the word foundation, you need to remove your old sort of thoughts about it and realise and recognise that it's quite a tough paper to sit. And there's no shame in that, and achieving a grade 5 on that is a very worthy grade indeed. The decision about tier of entry is not made until the final decision until after the mock examinations in year 11, which don't take place until January of year 11. It is important that we will be always monitoring your daughter's progress throughout the 2 years of GCSE, and we want to make sure that we get that tier of entry correct so that she has a very positive exam experience. On the slide in front of you, you can see what is demanded of the students at the end of the course. There are 3 papers, each 1.5 hours long, and one of which is non-calculator. There's a few things on the examination skills required for maths. One of the key things to note, and they will already have had experience of this in Key Stage 3, is there's far more questions are now unstructured, worth quite a few marks, in which they have to organise themselves and their structure. And we're already practicing that in Key Stage 3, and we continue to practice that in Key Stage 4. Now, there are a few ways that your daughter can receive support at home, and she should be familiar with all of these sites that I'm just highlighting to you now. We use My Maths and MathsWatch, which contain support and questions, and in fact, in the period of remote learning, they would have been set work on both of these platforms to do at home. More recently, we subscribed to an online textbook, which also has videos and resources, called Caboodle, and your daughter should be aware of her login details for that. So there's plenty of areas of support outside of the classroom which your daughter should be aware of, and now you are as well. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to hand on to Miss Bateson, who's the head of year.
Studying for GCSEs is a great step up from year 9. And the workload for the girls has certainly increased since September. Whilst they are diligently working and getting on with it, they will need support. All of the girls are working really hard, and I know they are trying their best. They will certainly need half term to rest and recuperate. They must now organise their time for each subject and decide when to do their homework for which subject. They can no longer afford to leave it until the last minute, or else they will feel overwhelmed. As they progress through year 10, they are going revising for science tests, but have also had to do homework in other subjects. The girls need to pace themselves and plan their work sensibly. If they have any difficulties or feel that it is too much, they can always talk to me or their form tutor, and we can try to help them. It really is important that they communicate with us at all times. We are here to help and support. The form tutors try to see the girls each week during the afternoon registrations to talk about how they are progressing in school. This is a chance for the girls to also say how they are and if there are any issues. Overall, I am very pleased with Year 10. With the current situation, it is very difficult for them being in the tower all day, but they are continuing to work hard and produce good work for their subjects.
Thank you, Ms. Bateson. I'm going to speak just very quickly now about steps that move us beyond Key Stage 4, and I know that may seem a strange thing on this evening when your daughters have only just moved into the Key Stage, but some of the questions we had from parents were around this area, and we're aware that one of the things we need to do over the next 2 years is to prepare them so that they're ready to move on to their next stage of study and indeed onto the world of work eventually. Ms. Arazi, who runs our careers programme, has a very comprehensive programme that she will run over the next 2 years. You can see lots of detail on the screen, and I'm not going to talk to all of that, but I think just the volume of what is operating here and the quality of what Ms. Arazi runs will be reassuring to you, because you can see that your students are in very safe hands. You can see that this year we will do some work with the students, principally through the PACE lesson on a Wednesday afternoon, helping them to begin to think about the world of work, to think about their own qualities, to think about how they can sell themselves on a CV. And then in year 11, we have a very intensive programme that runs during the autumn term. It's running with year 11 right now to help them think about their options at 16 plus. So Mr. Bevan will come and talk about our own sixth form here. We're very keen that our students are able to continue with us here. We want this to be a school that they join at 11 and leave at 18, but we also want to share information with them about other options locally. We will invite local colleges and other providers in to speak. And each student will also have the opportunity to meet with one of the YC Hearts advisors, who will offer some impartial advice as well. Clearly, as Ms. Bateson has said a moment ago, the pastoral team, Ms. Bateson and her tutors, will work very, very closely with the individual girls as well, knowing them as they do, and there will be a lot of support available for them as they think about next steps. So to those of you who are asking, what about A-level choices? What about thinking about post-16? That will happen next year, and there will be a lot of support around that process. We just ask one thing of you as parents. We will be doing a lot of work with your daughters about that process. We will be talking to them about what is out there. But of course, you are the most influential people in your daughters' lives. We know that you will be most proud of your daughter if she grows into the person that she wants to be, the person that she will be happy being in the future. So please, as you're talking about career aspirations over the next 2 years, as you're talking about A-level subject choices, do as Ms. Arazi has put on the screen. Use your influence to encourage and guide, not to determine. Ms. Ty spoke earlier about listening to your daughters, discerning with them what it is that's going to make them happy and allow them to grow to be the wonderful people that they will be in the future. I've got one more thing to speak about. It's a completely separate issue, and that's about the topic of free school meals. We recognise that these are difficult times, that for many families, these are difficult times financially. We'd encourage you, if you are experiencing financial difficulties at the moment, to think about applying for free school meals. It's a simple and quick process. It's done online. What you need to do is to go to the Hearts website, hearts.gov.uk, as you can see on the screen, and then click on free school meals. That will entitle your daughter to a free school meal in school each day. No other student in the year will realise that she's receiving a free school meal. The free school meal will be credited to our cashless system, and your daughter will just pay with her finger like the other students. And it's one way in which we can support the students if your family is experiencing some difficulty at the moment. So please do have a look. On the screen at the moment, you can see details of some of the benefits that, if you're receiving those as a family, will make you entitled to free school meals. Obviously, this is only going to be on the screen for a short period of time, but if you go to the Hearts website, hearts.gov.uk, that list will be there. And please, if you do have concerns in this area, if you are worried about being able to support your daughter with the things that she needs over the next 2 years, do get in touch with us in the school. You're welcome to use me as a first point of contact, because we want to ensure that all of the students are well supported in these difficult times. I'm going to head back to Ms. Ty.
Thank you, Mr. Cowling. Thank you, Ms. Bateson, and thank you very much, Mrs. Harris, for giving their time to be able to talk to you today. We are going to be drawing to a close now, and I wanted to finish with this picture. It's something that I've used before, and I think this is summarising some of the things that we said this evening. Okay, so here's our picture of a rainbow over the school. And I think what this means is the contradiction of what we're trying to say to you. GCSEs are hard, they are challenging, there's a huge amount of content, and yet we're also encouraging your daughters to love learning, to enjoy the process of being able to be challenged. Maybe they're even not in a contradiction of that. We know that there is an awful lot of pressure on our children now, that there is competition when they leave these schools for places to go to university. There is competition to go into careers, and they do need to start making these choices quite early on in their lives. But at the same time, we want them to be as they are, to be children, to play, to exercise, to be with each other, to be their friends, to talk to you. And that again is maybe a contradiction, maybe not. We also want them to feel anchored into this school, but we are doing it under difficult circumstances, aren't we? They only see the year 10s because we're all in zones. The teachers are coming to them, they're learning maths in a room that they normally study languages in. They're learning their art in those rooms. It's a total contradiction. But at the same time, the very core of it is they're still Watford girls, and they're in Watford girls' schools, being taught by our staff, being cared for, and being cared for by you as well. So just like that rainbow, yes, there are difficult times and there are rain clouds, but at the same time, there is sun, and you have to have those two contradictions to get rainbows. And that's exactly what we are doing together as a community. We are helping them through the challenging times because there is sun there as well. And we will have these rainbows. And as I hope, as Mr. Canning said, and as Mr. Bevan says, and all of us say, that these GCSEs are simply the next step as they carry on into our sixth form. We hope that you will also see with us that their future is very bright. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming to a close now. Thank you for giving up your time, and we hope sometime very soon to see you in the school. Good evening.